Hello, everyone. We are back for this afternoon session as we conclude day 4 of Caribbean Women for Climate Justice Conference 2023. So I hope that you are refreshed and also excited for what we have in store for this afternoon. So I'm joined by the co-lead for CW4CJ, Ms. Christine Samwaru, the founder and managing director of the Breadfruit Collective. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Derval. How are you? How are you feeling?
My heart is full. I'm really happy about what we have been able to do over the past few days, and we're not done yet. So I'm excited and I'm happy and I'm just elated. So this afternoon, as we mentioned, we are going to be discussing the collective advocacy agenda from the Gender Working Group under the Caribbean Climate Justice Alliance. So just to give everyone some perspective in terms of what this Caribbean Climate Justice Alliance is all about, you may be hearing about it and not exactly sure. And this really originated with CANARI. And it's so interesting that 1 year ago when we were planning and while we were hosting CW4CJ 2022, one of our objectives was to establish a regional alliance because we recognize that there are a lot of players in the climate and gender space in the Caribbean. But just as how we are fragmented as islands and some mainland territories, we have common issues and we are doing different things, but we figured that we could do more and have greater impact if we are connected. So we really see CW4CJ as that connector, bringing all the actors, all the different stakeholders who are doing, such incredible work in little pockets throughout the region. We wanted to create a forum or a space to bring them together so that if someone in Jamaica and someone in St. Vincent are working on the same issue, they can collaborate, they can pull together ideas, they can pull together resources. And yes, the implementation may look slightly different because of the local context, but they can definitely learn from each other and build on what they are doing. Iron sharpens iron. So we really wanted to bring people together in the region and also in the diaspora doing climate justice, gender justice work so that we could achieve more and we could go further faster. So now with that objective, we discovered that CANARI was also pursuing that same sort of idea. And we made contact with them, and what can I say? The rest is history. Now we are all involved in this Caribbean Climate Justice Alliance, and it's about building regional coalition amongst grassroots organizations, working to transform the policy environment and to hold our leaders accountable. So they have a number of working groups, and we are leading, Christine and we are leading the Gender Working Group. And that working group includes persons from around the region. Some of them are here today and have been part of the CW4CJ agenda. And as part of that, as part of the alliance, the groups they cover themes such as access to finance, adaptation and loss and damage, gender, human rights, just and nature-based solutions, the just transition, and youth. So these are all very important concepts that we need to address if we're really serious about sustainable development, if we're really serious about equity and inclusion and justice. So under the working group, we have some proposals in terms of the priority areas that we would like to address. And of course, CW4CJ really brought out some of the issues and how they all intersect. But we want to go a step further than just having dialogue. Dialogue and awareness is critical, but what happens next? So this session is really about next steps. We're going to present some of our ideas, and we want you to critique them. We want you to give your perspective, your ideas, with the intention that we will be able to access resources that are available so that we could actually implement something. So we want to move from awareness to action, and we invite persons from whatever organization you are a part of, come on board, come under our umbrella so that we could share resources and we could exchange ideas and we could collaborate and that we could have an impact throughout the Caribbean region. So I hope that gives everyone an overview of why we're here today and what we're hoping to accomplish. So with that, I would now hand over to Christine to go a bit more into what we have proposed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Durval. I really appreciate that introduction. And I always say that when we started this out, we had really big ideas, and it was great to see that people were also thinking along the lines of forming alliances, because we can only do so much because we only have so much resources and capacity. So it's important that we're speaking with each other, we're sharing best practices, we're talking to each other and sorting this out, because the crisis is already here. We're not all affected in the same way. We have solutions. I always believe the solutions are already there. We just need action. And I'm somebody that believes that with our people, sometimes we don't even need government. We can implement solutions among ourselves, and we can share feedback and perspectives and take actions. We don't always need to depend on the government, because we can see time and time again the social movements that we really need. Unless people lead, our leaders aren't going to follow. So I'm going to present a little on the gender working group, what we have so far. Overview of, we're using an intersectional lens when we do this work, when we speak of gender. And I encourage you all to, if you feel comfortable, you can jump in at any time, because I want this to be a conversation. Or if you feel a bit better, more comfortable speaking at the end. But definitely what we want is we're presenting what we have. And we're so grateful that CANARI has put their trust into young feminists to lead this work. We always talk about having young people lead the movement, but this is the ultimate reality. They actually put us in charge of this. And so because we are a part of this and leading it, we have to do so, and we have to do it from a really inclusive lens. And we always have to check ourselves and make sure that we're doing everything possible to include as many people as we can. So with that, I'm going to share a presentation. As I mentioned before, it's a conversation. So please stop me at any time. You might have to unmute and speak, because when I present, I may not be able to see if you raise your hand. But we want it to be a conversation. We really want to come out of here feeling like we all place input into this document, and we're going to update it and continue to share with you. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now. Are you seeing anything? Yes, we're seeing it now. Okay, perfect. I was getting nervous. All right, great. So as you mentioned, Durval from the Climate Conscious. I'm from the Breadfruit Collective, and she's from Trinidad. She's in Guyana. So we're really happy that she's here and she's doing this work in our country. We're grateful for that. And we always say that we have a lot of perspective from Jamaica and Trinidad and Guyana. And as part of this work, we really want to expand out to other islands, and not only the English-speaking Caribbean, but also the Dutch, the French, the Spanish. We want all these people, and we want to create this network that people can feel like they belong, they're a part of. All right, so setting the stage. Gender, I'm going to go through these vocabs because I'll be using it throughout. Gender, climate change, and climate justice. Gender refers to the roles, behavior, activities, attributes, and opportunities that any society considers appropriate for girls and boys, women and men, gender interacts with, but is different from the binary categories of biological sex. Climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns, mainly caused by human activities, especially the burning of fossil fuels. And climate justice, climate change will affect different people and places unevenly, and so it is likely to lead to inequalities within and across nations and between current and future generation, creating injustice. So when we talk about gender, oftentimes people use it as a synonym for women. However, with this climate gender working group, we're talking about beyond the binary. We're talking about everybody. And we want to be, as leaders of this movement, we're not having people just share their perspective. We want them to feel comfortable to actually shape our agenda in this work. So I always start off with setting the stage in terms of the framework we're using. And for me, intersectionality is an important aspect, intentional intersectionality as well. And I'm sure all of you are familiar with it, but just an overview, intersectionality is a framework for conceptualizing a person, group of people, or social problem as affected by a number of discrimination and disadvantages. It takes into account people's overlapping identities and lived experience in order to understand the complexities of the prejudice they face. For instance, race, class, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, and other identity marker. And it's important for us to highlight that this concept was first used by legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989. And so I really like the diagram because it shows exactly that we don't live single issues lives. All these things that we talk about, they're very relevant, they're very real. And so when we're implementing solutions, when we're coming up with decision, when we're forming groups, we have to bring people in and we have to create a space whereby they're able to show the entirety of themselves and understand that we're all coming into this movement from different experiences, different lived experiences. My reality, how I might be affected from climate change can be very different from someone with a disability. It might be different from someone who's in the LGBTQ plus group. It might be different from somebody who's elderly. And so we really have to always understand this. And this justice work that we talk about, it's not easy work. It's definitely hard work and it's intentional work, and it requires us to keep checking ourselves. And I keep saying that throughout, but it's also a reminder for myself. All right, so intersectionality and climate justice. The Caribbean is already faced with the impacts of climate change. Climate change affects everyone. However, like I mentioned, not everyone is impacted the same. Given our intersecting identities, some vulnerable groups are significantly affected. So for example, global research shows that 1 in 3 women in the world are affected by gender-based violence. But when you bring that home to my country, Guyana, 1 in every 2 women will experience some form of gender-based violence in their lifetime. And these numbers are alarming. And it shows that when we talk about climate change, we need a climate justice framework, a climate feminist framework. And there's a quote here that I really like, and it's from a book called All We Can Save. And it says, climate feminism is exactly what we need because our planetary crisis has never been gender neutral. All right, so going into the gender working group and what we've put together, we have identified priority areas for action. We have 4 of those, and then we have lists of actions that these are just initial things that we came up with based on our experiences in doing this work. But this is the part where we want feedback from you because you've all, you're in the space, whether it's in the climate space, in the gender space, you're coming in with your own unique experiences. And so we want you to feed into this document as much as you can. So priority area 1, increasing awareness and linkages to climate and gender justice. In order to improve gender equity, it is crucial that all stakeholders have a basic understanding of climate justice, climate change, and gender equity issue, and can understand the intersection of these key issues. It is important for stakeholders both in climate justice and gender justice space integrate their work plan. So we are past that whereby we're working in silos. We have to build movements. And throughout this conference, I hope you're able to see the importance of why we're saying we need to build across movements. We have limited resources, limited people, and the problem is already here. We're already facing the problem. So our list of action in identifying this priority area, we have, well, you're all a part, and we're so grateful, a part of the Caribbean Women for Climate Justice Conference. This is the second year, and the main focus is to facilitate dialogue, networking, alliance building, and assessing the status of climate and gender justice in the Caribbean. We have host ongoing webinars and offline and online discussion on connection of gender and climate justice throughout the Caribbean. So you can have it in your own country in person, you can have it virtually. Basically, we're trying to have ongoing discussion on these intersecting topics. Develop an online course on the connection of gender and climate justice from a Caribbean perspective in partnership with a university or accredited institution. So this is something that I hope within the next year we can see roll out. It's something I'm really passionate about, bringing in academics. And we know that higher education oftentimes, again, I've seen for myself with the University of Guyana here, persons in the social work, a lot of times they would reach out and ask for a presentation on just getting a little bit more of an understanding on the connection between the climate justice. And I think we have reached that point whereby all our students graduating should have a basic understanding on the concepts of gender and climate justice and how it intersects. We need to build an online database of grassroots organization focused on gender issues, example, gender-based violence, reproductive access, refugees and migrants, and make the connections with climate justice. And this is something that we wanted to get done in our initial plans for the conference. This was something that we saw was lacking. And so we really want to create this database. We want to publish an anthology of Caribbean stories, short stories, poems, and essays covering climate justice and gender justice. Again, there's a lot of power in storytelling and in telling our own stories and seeing ourselves reflected in that. And the quote I read out earlier, that's an anthology book, and it's inspiring because it's a collection of stories. All we can say, it's a collection of stories from North America. And why not have one for the Caribbean? Why not publish our own short stories or poems or essays and the way we see ourselves in this movement? And why not use this forum as a way to launch that? We really want to collaborate with other groups to amplify similar work being done in the Caribbean. This year for the conference, we highlighted, and we were very intentional about it, our co-sponsors. So there are 50 groups this year. We moved from 34 last year to 50 groups this year, covering everything from mental health, LGBTQ+, gender, menstrual poverty. And that's the kind of relationship we want to build with everyone who's doing justice work. How can we come together? How can we amplify each other's work? Because again, we're facing these big issues and we need masses of people to understand. So that was priority list 1. I'll pause and see if there are any reaction, initial reaction from you, and then I'll move on. Vidya, I saw you raise your hand. Yes, I can only see it because you're on video.
Hi. Hi, so hi, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so I asked an important question in the chat because I've had experience before where different entities and organizations who are working with this thing named Caribbean define the scope of Caribbean differently. And I just hope that in whatever you're formalizing or conceptualizing, it will help you to actually list countries and territories. Because I had that difficulty when, for example, I was working with an NGO that had one list of territories and the funding agency was working with a different list of territories. So it's just good for you. And especially if you want to be intentional, so you can like identify which ones have been missed and where you can like reach out. So as you said, you know, we have like the big countries or the big issues, you know, the Barbados and so on, but what's being missed, because also there's some interesting work going on in those countries, but there might be language barriers and so just to put that on as a suggestion. I'm not sure if you're taking feedback now, but I was just thinking that
No, I am.
this,
Yes, we're
okay,
recording. I
so
hope you're
sure,
recording.
yeah.
And then I'm also taking notes.
Right. Hi, Nicole. Right. So just saying territories, because we have places like Saint Martin, Martinique, Guadeloupe, and so, which are like the French overseas territories. Do we include them in the some, you know, Puerto Rico? Where's Puerto Rico, for example, in this? You know, so sometimes, you know, some people you gotta like list, and it's really important because it affects how because donors might give you projects to work within certain territories and not others. Like, for example, Haiti is often excluded, or Cuba is excluded, right? And therefore, just to suggest that in terms of the online course, just a suggestion that because in addition to the online course, if there's perhaps some kind of between you, because of your experience and everyone, people might already have this, some kind of like toolkit which people can use for in-person facilitation of discussions. Because not everybody might be able to sit through an online course. Internet might go down blackout. And I mean, I know I've witnessed online courses, I'm grateful for them, but I think sometimes in-person discussions are so really useful and might more happen. But we've got to like get some guide or online resources. I just had a question. Are your recordings from last year still available online?
Yes, they are.
Okay,
And
so you keep yeah, so that's part of the
yes,
resource,
and
right?
also
Okay.
to make it easier, Derval actually turned them into podcast episodes. So
Oh, good.
yes,
All right.
yes.
So
And I want to
everything is
say, yeah, it's
yeah.
available on the website, on our website. And also we're gonna have a website for the conference. So we're gonna populate that as well. But right now, it's on the Breadfruit Collective website. I want to say thank you so much for mentioning the territories and the importance of mentioning territories versus countries. And this year we tried really hard for the translation, Spanish and French and sign language. We still have to include Dutch, and we still have a lot more work of actually engaging with those people from those countries so they can actually tell us what they want to highlight. And also, like, we know that all the speakers were speaking in English. We want to highlight, you know, there's so much more that we can do when we talk about inclusivity. And I know the online course as well, and definitely having a toolkit of sorts for in-person facilitation. I think that's very, very valuable. We saw that Matthew joined all the way from her community, and someone like her, she's bringing in so much rich discussion, rich experience. And so we want to create in Guyana, in Georgetown, we live a life, and in other parts of the country, we live another life. And so it's really necessary when we talk of inclusivity to understand geographics. Yes, thank you so much. Is there anything else? I see there's another hand as well.
Yeah, Lisa had her hand up.
I'm here, just stepped away briefly. No, I wanted to just quickly say that I think the list is comprehensive, is a good one. I think that all of the things that are being proposed would definitely help to advance the work that we're discussing on climate justice. I particularly like the online course, and would say that you know, working with the institutes for gender and development studies in the 3 campuses might be a good place to start. And I did do some work with the Tabari unit here in Barbados on doing a course on gender, climate, and water. We even looked at issues of energy. So there's definitely capacity. There's a foundation that can be built on. And they were going to be integrating some of those elements into their gender and development certificate course. So I think in addition to the online course, you might want to also look at integrating to the existing courses that exist on gender and development generally, and maybe having a specialization.
Yeah, thank you so much for mentioning that. I made a note.
Sure.
And one of the things that came out of this conference, we're so happy to note this. Like last year we had half the number. This year we had over 500 persons registered, and a lot of those people are from universities, and so they've been reaching out and looking for ways to collaborate. And I see that, you know, you speak your things, your dreams into reality when these things are happening, because now you're engaging with the universities and so on. So thank you so much, Lisa. Anyone else?
Yeah, Christopher.
So again, just to commend the team on the strategies. I firmly support all of the strategies presented, and just to complement some of the other suggestions. One suggestion that I think is also needs to be emphasized.
Chris, you went back on
Yeah,
mute. Christopher, if you're hearing us, you are muted.
sorry about that. Yeah, so when you think about what are the again, I don't know if you were hearing me when I said that I just wanted to commend all of the strategies. I do support all of them. I do think that they are going to be meaningful and impactful once implemented. But just to also support and to complement some of the other suggestions, that one of the issues that has to be kind of brought into focus is that of disaster risk reduction. Because when you think about climate impacts, you think about it in relation to disaster risk reduction, but there's also an adaptive element to that. So there's a lot of opportunities in exploring that space with regards to your climate justice intervention. Sorry about the background noises. The other thing too, when it comes to partnerships, right now there's a Institute of Fire Engineers have started off in the Caribbean. They may be very much interested in partnering and supporting some of the work that is actually being done. So well, I think I can actually connect with her and share their contact with her to make that connection. The other thing that I wanted to mention too is that we really need to see an emphasis when we talk about climate justice on the indigenous communities. And well, I did think, but we have to have it emphasized, the indigenous communities and also the disabled communities. And well, for my particular interest, the blind and visually impaired as a critical priority group also. And connections can be made with the various societies of the blind to actually support the types of actions implemented within these communities. So just to bring those 3 points to the attention of the team.
Yes, thank you so much for mentioning those, and very, very important. So when Derval was mentioning about the Climate Justice Alliance, they have a lot of working groups. And so we are focused on the gender aspect. There is a group specifically on disaster risk reduction, but I think it's still relevant that we work hand in hand with them and share the information that we have, because it's relevant, and we don't want to create silos when we're saying we're trying to work together, So I wrote that down, and I noted what you said about the indigenous community and disability groups. And this year we partner with the Deaf Association of Guyana as one of our co-sponsor, and also persons with physical disability. And last night we had Gabe on our panel. But we have to go farther, every year we have to improve. We also had Immaculata and Cerrito from Immaculata Maki from Guyana and Cerrito from Suriname. But we have to expand, and we have a plan here so it's not just a conference anymore, it's bigger than a conference. And so we hope that we can motivate people and let them lead in these discussions, because we want to hear from them. And we also have to acknowledge, for example, Immaculata, locating all the way in South Rupununi, deep South Rupununi, noting the internet connectivity and all these things that we have as barriers, but we have to look for ways to overcome it. And people would be the best, the ones on the ground would be the best in telling us how to overcome this, because they have the solutions already. And definitely in terms of disability groups here in Guyana, I've been working with Gabe. He has an organization. I've been working with him in terms of asking how to support and this climate discussion conversation, you're very interested in it. And so after we're done here, I'm going to extend an invitation for persons who want to join the working group, because there is a call out to, we had an initial list of people, but at the end, we'll talk a bit more on how people can be a part of the working group and help shape the agenda and the work moving forward. Any other thoughts on this? If not, I can move on. All right, I'm going to move on. So this is priority area 1. All right, so priority area 2, integration of climate and gender policies in the region. So various Caribbean countries, there are numerous climate and gender policies. However, given the interconnection of gender and climate, data must be reflected on within each policies. Research is needed on what has already been done and what is needed to properly address climate and gender. And this morning we had an amazing conversation on data and the importance of it. And that was firsthand. I think we need more of that discussion. There are policies that address gender, for example, the Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, CEDAW, which many Caribbean countries are signatories. And similarly, research and national determined contribution, the NDCs on climate, should include data on gender. So list of action on this priority area: conduct assessments on the status of climate and gender policies and a gap analysis of their intersection across the region. Present findings from gap analysis and recommendations to policymaker on ways to effectively incorporate gender and climate in relevant policies, including enforcement mechanisms. Advocate for inclusion of gender-focused and climate-focused CSOs on national coordination mechanisms that oversee policy and decision-making on climate change and gender, example, National Climate Change Committees or CEDAW committees, etc. So thoughts on this one. So this is exactly what we're trying to do with the conference, have the conversation, but also how do we actually collect the data within our own countries and territories, and actually, integrate it into these policies that governments sign on to. Like, how do we raise it to the policy level?
I see my hand is up, so I'm gonna borrow
Sure,
from.
go ahead. I can't see it. So
I'm gonna borrow from continued privilege, I guess you can say. And so just to say that, yeah, I mean, I think that these two are key. I mean, there's work going on, and the Engender Project is supposed to be addressing some of this, and there are models in the region, Grenada, Jamaica. There is Guyana's green carbon and green development strategy, but there definitely needs to be more consistent work for sure on this, and the fact that countries should have it. There's been work on the NDCs, but not necessarily at the policy level. So I definitely think that this is important work that needs to be done. And so I see the priority need there, but I think I would also say that along with the policies, we need to have an accountability framework, because you can also have a policy that, does brush strokes on gender and climate and actually isn't really intending to be doing anything very deep. And so I think there does need to be some kind of criteria and some kind of accountability framework that would also allow for reporting on what has been done on this. And then I see Vidya is also making a comment there in the chat, so you might want to look at that, Christine. And the link to CEDAW is key. I think a key element of that will be picking up on a point that Nicole Henderson raised earlier about making sure that we also understand that GBV and also sexual reproductive health rights issues are things that need to be captured in those policies. We don't need another set of policies then to deal with each of those. And so we want something, that's comprehensive and that breaks it down. And that's why I say that to look at the Grenada and Jamaica ones are good, because they are very detailed. The Jamaica one started with even a revision and a reassessment of the national context, and then went back to the table in terms of the sectors and went through each of the thematic areas with a clear set of priorities and actions, etc. The thing that was missing was the budgeting. So that's gonna be my last point. No point in having a policy if it doesn't have a plan for implementation and a budget to go with it, because then it's a great, it's an important normative step, but it doesn't necessarily have the, the renewable energy. I was about to say gas, but no, the renewable energy to make it move. So I think that it's important that when we are promoting this, to make sure that, some of these key steps for actually implementing and taking action are also going to be taken on board. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I made a note of it, and especially the part on the accountability. And we'll talk a bit about budgeting and grants a little bit later on. But I see there's a comment. Vidya, do you want to unmute and speak?
Feel weird. Like I'm talking too much. And,
No.
please
So
forgive me,
no,
Ryan.
you're not. I told people in the very
Right. So
beginning.
Nicole, I'm glad Nicole, I think Nicole from day one, from the first evening, Nicole's really been bringing this up. Maybe, but I just wanted to say that I just want to share in the group, because I'm coming to this from the GBV work. And if I had not met Christine, I would not have been here. I would never have done things like now when I'm doing a GBV workshop. I'm actually integrating now to say that violence to the environment is another form of gender-based violence. And 2 years ago, I would not have done that. So I'm just saying, so I just wonder that but again, that, I volunteer, but I think my colleagues who are in the GBV space are not doing this. Many of them are like social work trained. You know how it is, right? I know environmental work and it tends to be like very sciencey and so, and I know, so I think somewhere an engagement within the GBV spaces, and I mentioned specifically the Spotlight Initiative with some of our countries, which is a Spotlight Initiative on violence against women, and some of us might know about it, but that would have been a wonderful opportunity to integrate some of these discussions, and there still might be opportunities. Lisa might be familiar of where we could do it. And I confess that last year, while I was in this conference, I didn't even think about some of those connections. I was still thinking silos, but just to say a year later that it would be really useful to keep it's just to engage those of us, because most of the work in the Caribbean on gender seems to be about gender-based violence. I mean, there's all the work about women in economic and in entrepreneurship and so on. And there might be discussions there. Of course, like in Ghana, there's a woman in oil and gas and so on. So it's about understanding, things take a little different turn there. But certainly to include that. And I made a note to myself, I think I probably have to speak more about these points when I'm in the GBV spaces too, but yeah.
Thank you so
sorry,
much for that,
and
Vidya.
just another side thing, when I talk about human rights, I've already started to say that people have said that living things include elements in the environment, that, for example, rivers have rights. So, so again, a year ago, I would not have been doing that, but it's now we're talking human rights workshop, and we bring in that, hold on, humans aren't the only living things with rights, and so that kind of interesting dynamic to bring in.
Yeah, very much so. And I share this, my personal story. I come into this work because I grew up in a home that was, my family faced various forms of gender-based violence. And so when I was looking for something to study, it always came back to justice. And while I was studying, I studied climate justice, and I didn't see I guess no one in my class understood when I talked about Caribbean and Guyana and the impacts it has on those two things. And I think I'm so grateful, over the couple of years, this conversation on gender and climate justice, we're able to see the connections with it, gender-based violence, reproductive access. We have all these things that we're doing the work, but we're doing it in our little pockets. And it's incredible to see how much people are working to try to break down these walls and talk with each other. Even with this conference, everyone that we reach out to, they're always so open and willing to share their thoughts and perspective and to come on board and to support us. And yeah, I think someone had asked for the action for this one. If there are any other hands, please, I can't see, please unmute and speak. All right, great, let me move on. All right, so the priority action for this one, list of action. So we have conduct the assessment of status of climate and gender policies, a gap analysis across the region, because we know Lisa's mentioned that there are places that are doing this and they're doing it well already. And then we have things like the NDCs and CEDAW that these are actual conventions and things that the government needs to report on. So how do we integrate, how do we get into this space and ensure that they're integrating gender, climate, vice versa? All right, if there are no other thoughts on this, I'll move on to the third priority action. So this one is capacity building. And I guess we can say that the course that we talked about, it can also fall under capacity building. Some of these issues are cross-cutting. So priority action 3, capacity building. Given the increasing climate impacts, resources should be allocated to increase resiliency. So climate capacity building, facilitating development and strengthening of the competency, knowledge, skills, abilities, and behaviors are necessary to promote gender equity and justice and build resilience in underserved or marginalized groups. Improve gender equity calls for greater participation of women in positions of leadership in all spheres, including government and business. So we know that all women are not feminists, all women aren't leading with feminist framework. A woman in high position does not mean that she is doing the things that we're talking about in promoting justice and promoting gender inclusion. So this is a really contentious point here, and there's so much discussion on it, but we hope that with these events and these conversations that we're having, we're using a model whereby we can have a conversation and unlearn and learn with each other. So some of the actions: build local capacity for citizen science and monitoring to support collection of gender disaggregated data in all sectors. Facilitate training and upskilling programs in STEM and green jobs for women and girls. Offer scholarships and internship opportunity for further education and professional development on climate and gender justice. Building community and facilitating shared learning among networks of actors and organizations involved in climate and gender justice work across the region, and establish a co-mentorship program for women and girls in the climate and gender justice field. Again, this can also be awareness, capacity building. We made a little note there. It can be individual or organization-based. And I wanted to know that there is a mentorship program for women and girls, I guess young women, I should say, between the ages of 16 to 25, through Girls Scare Jamaica. And it's an incredible space whereby they match young women who are interested in these topics, climate, general, broadly climate and gender, to people in the Caribbean that's already doing this work. And last year I was a part of it. Aisha Constable and Janelle, they are the co-founder of that organization. And I think we need to have more of that mentorship, because for me personally, I wish I had a mentor growing up. I wish the things that I was interested in, I think I'm still explaining to my family what I'm doing and the things that I'm passionate about. They still don't get it. But I wish I had a mentor to, check in and ask for support and so on. But I think with us here being in a group and having a working group, we are all each other's mentor in some way, and we all can hold each other accountable. But I'll pause here and open up for discussion. Yeah, Nicole?
I like the action items. I do appreciate the offer for scholarship and internship opportunities. But I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you were talking about it, and you kind of switched in your speech in terms of the type of opportunities afforded to girls versus women, because I'm in my 40s. And I would love some of the opportunities that I see for younger women, especially in the climate justice piece, you know, be offered to older persons, because I think the vast experience we have, plus a scholar, more educational, I guess, based stuff, because one of the things that I want to ask from the financing piece is some of the intellectual stuff that is known in the metropoles that we don't know. So like, for example, I don't know if you all know, there's a heat conference next week coming up. And I think that there are lots of stuff that we could learn from that, considering how SIDS is going to be affected by the heat increase. So that those sorts of knowledge sharing should happen. And I think every time that we now have a quote unquote expert quote that comes outside of the region that doesn't have the expertise that we have, that we write it in their contract that they do some sort of training or some sort of sharing, because of the fact that we pay them X amount of money, lots and lots of money, and we don't have the expertise, we don't have the knowledge, and every time we need to do this quote unquote specific thing, we have to go outside the region for it. So I really hope that we with these groups that we're forming, we create the numbers to negotiate that some of the stuff that we want here stays here versus going outside.
Thank you so much for mentioning that, Nicole. And I made a note of that. Yes, I guess people, this is gender space, and you have given us something to like edit on our document, because young women, yes, all women, yes, men as well, LGBTQ, beyond the binary, yes, we have to create these opportunities for everyone. Our conference specifically centers women and girls. But we know when we're talking about a gender working group, we're talking about everyone. And so we constantly have to edit ourselves. And we always have to like, how can we create opportunities for people in this space? Because climate justice is a relevantly new topic. And for the Caribbean, age cannot be the limit for you to access resources. It shouldn't be. And how can we move past that? Yes, we want to encourage our young people, but we also have people that, you know, we have these age limits that we put on these scholarships and opportunities. How can we move beyond that? And that can be a discussion point that we continue to discuss. Any other thoughts on this? I saw something on Saidi. Lisa, feel free to share.
Thank you, Christine. So yes, like Vidya, I didn't want to be talking too much, but just a note, I see Nicole say she's coming. Very good, Nicole. We're waiting for you anytime. So I was saying that we have, you know, we started initially with the pilot last year. We've now kind of consolidated our internship program annually. So we're trying to make it open all the time. And while normally, yes, and in this case, it's linked to, you know, university, you know, education, we did have an interesting experience the year before. I don't know if those of you who know Aisha Freitas from Guyana, but she does a lot of very interesting work in SRHR and also has an interest in climate. And she did volunteer with us for 3 months. And it was a great experience. So she came, she worked a couple of days a week and helped us with, you know, projects that we had, and it worked out very well. So I think in response to what Nicole was saying, I think even, you know, there are different modalities. And so it could be, it could be scholarship, internship, and volunteer opportunities. And so we certainly are looking to kind of continue to expand. So anyone who's interested in volunteering with us for a period of time, we are certainly open to it. We just need to discuss, you know, how it could work to mutual benefit. But also happy to partner with you and others on, you know, an internship program, and even having a special space for gender and climate justice. Obviously, ours is wider because of the projects that we have, but a lot of that work is about gender. So Nicole, just let me know you're ready, because I'm about to tell my operations associate you're coming, right? So just letting you know.
Kwesi about to send an email.
Exactly, you know, Kwesi may send you off an email, right? But no, because we have been talking a lot about SRHR. In fact, Aisha did our first blog. We have one that I shared earlier that's now about Indigenous women. But we did one on SRHR. We are doing some work on period poverty, et cetera, this year as well. So the timing is great. So yeah, the door is open, and happy to support directly and indirectly where we can.
Yeah, you see, we're already coming up with solutions. And I'm gonna call Vidya and Lisa out. You all, like, we are Caribbean people, we're gaffing here. Like, you jump in anytime. Like, this is not a formal space. Well, I hope it's not a formal space. I didn't sign up for a
You have
formal
to
space.
give you have to give space. Hello, no, I have to learn the big man to give space to other people to speak.
Yes,
Right?
definitely,
Right.
definitely.
So,
So we have the
that
time.
is, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So
right.
definitely, those of you who are a little on, on the quieter side, feel free to jump in all your ideas. We can hold it in this space and we can have a discussion about it. We want to hear from you. This work is about lived experience. Climate change, when you hear about it, it's like you said, it's like little science, sounds like big perspective you don't get. But when you're talking about action on the ground, all of you here are qualified. And I'm taking notes, it's recorded. So we are going to go back and work through this, and we're going to continue. We have one more action, two more action strategies to go through. But yeah, we'll continue. And definitely with what you said, Vidya, with sharing space, I appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. Anything else from anyone? And I saw including STEAM. Yes, we can do that. Any hands? Anyone? All right, so I'll move on. All right, so this is the last one that we have: access to financial resources. The risk of economic displacement parallels gender inequality, with women being at a greater risk of loss of income and limited access to financial assets. So, a lot of times we have less access to land rights. I know in Guyana, we are able to access it. I mean, the process is extremely long and tedious, but in other places, we know women are not able to access land resources. And women are considered the poorest. Again, we're not using the binary in this sense. We have the data for women. There's still so much work that needs to be done beyond the binary when we're talking about poverty and so forth. So the action that we have here, just one action: establish a dedicated fund to organizations that are doing work at the intersections of gender and climate justice. And I must say that our region, because of the climate justice work we're doing and the level that we're doing it at, using this intersectional approach, I think there are inputs from other donors. There are donors that are interested in the work that we're doing, but they want to see action, especially like action on the ground. And I can say that there are two. Open Society Foundation has been in the region, and now we're going to have the Global Fund for Women. They're going to be in the region. And so we have access to resources, and there's a CANARI opportunity grants. But basically, I guess the thing is, what exactly do we want to get involved in? How do we want to get involved with the working group? The working group is not just Derval and myself. There are other people that are already on the group, but we want to expand this. As I mentioned in the beginning, we want to expand the group to have, if you're interested in it, you let us know what that would look like. That would be another conversation in terms of meeting and the things that you have to do and so on. But this is what we have so far. This is the last slide. No, sorry, I have one more slide. But this is in terms of the access to the resources. We know that's the big one. Capital is important, and we need to get it and have accountability for it. I'm going to pause and let you all speak. No thoughts on this? No thoughts on money?
Oh, I have lots of thoughts on money, but lots of thoughts. I was waiting for others to jump in.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I guess this is a good as any time to ask for it. I know we've had a larger conversation around reparations, but does anybody know if part of the reparation ask is also included in the? So we've given you all the resources and stuff like that. You all are now, quote unquote, destroying the planet, are you all willing to now give us money to assist us in combating what you all have created? Does anybody know if part of the reparations ask is included in anything like this?
So I know from coming out from the last COP, that was exactly the conversation with the loss and damage fund. That was exactly what it was supposed to be. But you know, with the COPs and all the criticism that comes from that, what I can say is one of the working group that we have as part of this Climate Justice Alliance is the human rights. And I know Melanie is leading that working group, and her work is very much focused on justice in its forms, and reparation. It's one of those things that she talks often on. And one of the things I'm going to do before we end, again, I'll ask Deval to mention the groups that they have. And if you're interested in a particular one that may not be the gender working group, you can let us know, and we can let Ayinka, we can send an email to Ayinka. But we also want to know in terms of if you're interested in being a part of the gender working group as well, you can let us know. And it doesn't have to be something you decide on today. You can let us know after, but we wanted to present this information to you. As mentioned, we are leading it, and we are now coming up with the framework on how we move forward with it. Because last year we found the Climate Justice Alliance, we reached out, and that was one of the things that we worked on this year between the last year conference and this conference, like how do we build the partnerships? And now we're leading this, and we want to come up with a framework on how to lead it. We have a draft framework here, but we want to see how this is implemented. Lisa, go ahead.
It's Christine. So Nicola, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, said that she would love to join the gender working group. So on finance, I think there are a number of different streams. And so part of what you might want to do is also look to see, you know, out of the many options that are out there, whether it's gender lens investing, the loss and damage fund, it is just access to money and finance. Even insurance can be linked to the finance issue. I mean, there's a whole body of work now that's coming out on climate, disaster risk, finance, and insurance that is a thing. And so it may be good to also just look and see, well, what are, you know, some of the things that you want to prioritize there. Outside of that, I think what is going to be important is, in addition to looking at how we get money in, we have domestic resources. I've been saying this for about 10, 15 years. We have lots of money in the bank, and nobody has yet come up with a strategy for how we get the very people who we say are vulnerable to be able to leverage their own financing for their own resilience and adaptation. It's sitting in the bank. The bank's using it for other things, not necessarily climate change resilience. And so I think one of the things has to be about how we do that, and not just even the formal banks, but the credit union. The credit unions in Barbados, for example, are doing some interesting things with energy, but there's more that they could be doing. But I also think outside of that, we need to get to the banking sector and do some serious work there, because they are right now, as far as I can see, doing very little to take on, you know, climate change and the impact that would have on people's income flows, people's need for resources, et cetera. And so I think there's an opportunity there that you may want to also explore and look at. At the same time, I think the idea of dedicated funds, small grants, et cetera, are also going to be important facilitators and, you know, moment turners, I think, for, you know, stimulating a certain kind of action at the grassroots level. That's also going to be key while we're putting some pressure on, you know, some of the more macroeconomic and sectoral financial structures. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Anyone else? And also, if there are people here from the working group, please feel free to share any thoughts on this. We really want to hear from you.
Yeah, I know Jackie is with us. I'm not sure if she'd want to say anything.
And particularly, you have covered quite a bit, and you know, it would be really good to have some of the people who are in the room now to join us.
100%, definitely. And Derval, since we're on the finance aspect, do you want to speak a bit about the CANARI grant?
Sure. So like I always say that, you know, the money isn't the problem, because I feel like there's always a lot of money out there. And sometimes the challenge is just for us to figure out how to access the money or what it is exactly we want to do. So in support of that idea or that belief that I have that the money is always out there, CANARI, they had a call last year and they are going to have another call this year for small grants. I believe it would range between 10 to 15,000 US dollars that would be available for projects. So that's something to keep in mind. And of course, if persons who already have organizations, but they want to partner with us, you know, to execute any of the things that may be aligned with some of what we have proposed in this framework, we are definitely open to that, so that the working group could support what persons are doing, because, you know, we can't lead everything and we don't intend to lead everything. We see ourselves as facilitators and connectors, right? So in terms of access to financial resources, we do acknowledge that there are some hurdles in terms of getting to the resources, but then there are also opportunities where we could start things, start small and build on it. So just something for persons to note, that there will be a call, there's supposed to be a call for small grants shortly within this year, and I'm sure there are other opportunities. So maybe if persons need support in whatever it is in terms of being able to access, maybe it's grant writing, or, you know, we could pool our skills and our capacities together to be able to access the resources that are out there, because it's out there. We just need to figure out how we can access it and do something with it.
Thank you so much for sharing. Any thoughts on what Derval shared? Okay.
I share a similar view that the money is there, just what to do with it, and where to find some of the skills that you need to access it.
Yeah, definitely. And we hope that this working group can be shaped by you all. You all have shown your interest in this topic. You're bringing in your lived experience, professional experience, and we want to make it as dynamic as we possibly can. And we're setting the framework here so you all can be a part of that plan on how we go about this. And I want to share that one of the things Derval and I spoke about was we really want to get people that are not from these countries that we always see the Guyana, the Trinidad, and the Jamaica. We really want them, but we also want other territories to be a part of this. So if you know someone that's doing this type of work in other places, please invite them, you know, encourage them to be a part of this. And also gender, again, it's a spectrum. So we want people across the LGBTQ plus to be a part of this group, and we want to hear their perspective, and we want them to be in the spotlight to share the things that they need, right? So we want to have as many people. We want to be intergenerational as well. We want to have young women, but we also want to have people who have been a part of this movement. We've come here, we started this, we haven't started this movement, we're continuing the movement, and we must acknowledge all the people that came before us and has, you know, and continue to lead the climate and the gender justice movement within our country. So we want to have all these dynamics to this, and we're going to continue to adjust and readjust as much as we need to fit the needs of our people. So some of the strategies, overall strategies that we have moving forward, we want to connect and expand, as I mentioned, the working group to include more women from different parts of the Caribbean, LGBTQIA+ people, youths, people with disability. So we know in Guyana, there definitely has been attack on civil society, especially in the climate justice, environmental justice space. So letters to editors noting the current struggles that persons are involving within their countries, and using the working group to amplify their voices. For example, oil and gas in Guyana, bauxite mining in Jamaica, deep sea mining. And so we want to use this working group as a way to like create momentum and share and support. We want to have social media campaigns, publish the anthology book. As I mentioned, storytelling is really important. Our ancestors were the original storytellers. And so we have to continue to see ourselves reflected and represented in our narratives. We want to continue to have a regional conference. We hope that one day we can have it in person and we all can be together and plan and, you know, just be in community together. But we also know the importance of having this virtual space in reaching people across the diaspora and so on. So I think the conference will always have a hybrid aspect to it, but we hope to one day have that in-person aspect as well. Side events that align with major climate and gender gatherings, for example, the COPs, we really want to center our perspective. We want to see our stories being told, our realities being told, when we have these big meetings like the COPs and the CEDAW meeting and so forth. And policy briefs and white papers, definitely an interest in research in the region on this topic is really necessary and important. And if that's what we want to come out of the working group. We want to have tangible things that we can show, that we can share. And yeah, we have a lot of work set out, but we're really excited and honored, as I mentioned before, to be leading this working group. It's an honor, it's a privilege, and we want to make it work for people, and we want to create trust. And I think trust is created when people can believe in you and when they feel like you're somebody with integrity. So that's exactly what we want to create with this working group. Yeah, that's it for us on what we presented. Please share any thoughts. I'm taking notes. I can also go back to the slides previous if you like, but that's it in terms of the gender working group, the framework that we have so far.
So thank you so much, Christine. And we still have opportunity for persons to share. We'll just have a kind of open floor for a few minutes. So Sherry's asking to go back to the first slide, Christine. And for those that are interested in getting on board with the working group or any of the other working groups, you can shoot us an email at cw4cj2022@gmail.com. There is a commitment form that CANARI had issued, so we can be the liaison between you and CANARI in terms of formally joining the working group, but you're already a part of the working group by being here today. So yeah, so we look forward to getting more organizations on board. You know, it's not about duplicated efforts. It's really about optimizing impact and the outputs from our efforts. So I'm really happy to see the level of engagement and the level of interest, you know. The fact that you're here, you know, it shows your interest. The fact that persons have participated in CW4CJ over the past few days, you know, it's very heartening to see. It's very encouraging because, you know, Christine and I and everybody, most other persons, you know, we do this work on top of our 9 to 5s, you know, so it's a labor of love. Sometimes you may ask yourself, why am I doing this? But then you get into a space like this and it all makes sense, right? So we are very appreciative of persons showing up and supporting and committing to moving this forward, building on what those that have come before us have done. You know, they walked so we could run. And I guess the generation to come will fly, hopefully. So yeah, so I'm looking at the chat.
I just want to double check. This was the slide you wanted to go on, this priority area 1 or the first slide?
Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'm going to stop sharing, but feel free, as Derval mentioned, we have the conference email, cw4cj2022@gmail.com. Perhaps somebody can write it from our team in the chat. And if you would like to, we encourage you to be a part of the working group. We're still in our formative stages of creating the framework. This is something that we presented today, where we have, based on the conversation, we have to go back and edit. And we want to have a group together and have meetings and so on. So if you're interested in being a part of this working group, let us know. If you're interested in being a part of the others, let us know as well, and we can connect Ainka, and yeah, we can connect you.
Okay, so we invite persons to put on their cameras. We're kind of over the more formal part of today, and maybe some of you have joined us over the past 4 days, or maybe you're just able to join us today, but we would like to get some feedback from you, or your thoughts around CW4CJ 2023. Some of you have been with us since 2022, sorry, the inaugural CW4CJ, and we're so grateful. We feel privileged to be able to do this again, and to do it even bigger and better, I would dare say. So yeah, we just have a little open floor for persons who may want to speak, give some feedback, share their thoughts before we wrap up today's session. So don't be shy. We'd love to hear from persons. And yes, and I'll remind folks about tomorrow. We have our Solidarity Circle at 3 p.m. and I'll let Christine share a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. So apart, noting you said that we're bigger this year, we've definitely grown, and having translation was something that made all of us so happy. And another aspect of this Transform Education, which is an arm to the UN Girls Education Initiative, they reached out, and I'm a part of Transform Education in terms of climate education. That's another aspect of this work that I'm a part of. And they have the Solidarity Circle, and basically it's a space whereby they encourage people to come and share. It's a safe space whereby we share, and we build community around topics. We did one in last year, I think, on Valentine's Day. We had one on love, and this year we're having another on Earth Day, in celebration of Earth Day, in observance of Earth Day, and having various conversation on what exactly does it mean to be a climate activist. How do we stay hopeful in a time when we're seeing disasters after disaster happen? How do we heal ourselves? How do we heal our generational trauma? Because we know we have to talk about colonization when we talk about the climate crisis. And so that's a space, if you're interested in it, tomorrow at 3 p.m. We're going to be co-facilitating, and it's going to be a very relaxed space and very communal. So if you're interested, definitely come by, and that'll be something that I'm looking forward to personally, because after a full 4 days of conference, I'm definitely looking forward to reflecting on all the work that we've been able to do.
Yes, it's a perfect way to wind down CW4CJ. And once you're registered for the conference, you should receive the link. It's a different link for tomorrow, so be sure to check your emails for the link if you plan on joining us at 3 p.m. So I haven't seen anyone's camera on. So if there's no additional feedback, I think we would move into.
Yes, I have one.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, I think you just kind of mentioning hopeful that group. One of the tell them that one of the reasons I think I could remain alive in the climate is because I get to scream and shout there, which is how we deal with some of the challenges. Because okay, so like for example, I deal with the heat index piece around how that 1.5 increase in the temperature is going to wreak havoc on women of reproductive age. So for those of us who really making the decision to get really involved in it, you know, to really find well-being spaces where you could get to talk about your despair. So when we get here, we do the work, because sometimes, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it in these spaces, but maybe just be mindful that not everybody is going to remain hopeful in this space. And for those who may have challenges while we're doing the work, that we make space for them. So like, for example, if the information becomes too overwhelming and somebody does break down, that we create that space for it. And we be aware that we also need to do the work, because one of the reasons why I think we do have the space to do it is because we take care of ourselves. And for the new people coming into this space, we have to remind the people that it is a challenge. We are going to hear information that is going to challenge us, because it's talking about the destruction of the planet, you know, and how do we create space for people who can't really hear that? And as I said, and I'm really reminding that in this space, sometimes we get uncomfortable around how people hear the information that we've been hearing for a while. So just to create space for some of those people coming in, and for those of us who've been here a while, to take care of ourselves, because this is for the long haul.
So powerful. Thank you for saying that. And it's 100% true. And that's part of the solidarity circle, is how do we heal ourselves in community and continue to do that? Because the work is a lot, and we are living crisis after crisis, and we're expected to show up perfectly. But how do we hold space? And also this work, we have been doing it for a while now, so we understand the importance of staying hopeful. But someone who may not want to stay hopeful because there is no, you know, people may feel like, where is the hope? We have to hold space for them, like you said, hold space and create communities and continue to rely on our communities. I think it's really useful. I have found myself finding a lot of joy in the solidarity circles, in terms of meeting people and learning, and also sharing the burden, in a sense, through a very much conversation way, not a forced way. And I really like both of the things you brought up in terms of taking care of ourselves too, because we're in it for a really long time and a long haul, and we have to do it in a way that's just and that's intersectional. So yeah.
Thank you, Nicole. And I see that Jackie has a hand raised, so you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the segments. I missed day 2, and I was tearing myself up because, you know, it's I really wanted to be there, but I had another commitment. And as I try not to stretch myself, you know, who comes first gets served first. But I also liked the timing. Since this online thing, everybody wanted to do things at 10 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. And for people who have other things to do, it's not always a convenient time. So the timing of this conference was really, I would say, ideal. And I thank you for the time, and I suppose the thought going into the on the planning and the different areas that that were covered. So looking forward to the continuation, and of course where we could get what we missed and what we could relook. That you know, I'm here, and thanks for a very good I would say a successful week.
Thank you, Jackie, and thank you for showing up. We appreciate your support and your involvement, and we look forward to moving forward with this work. Conference recordings will be available on YouTube on both the Climate Conscious and the Breadfruit Collective. And we'll also follow up with an email that will give you the links to access the recordings. And we also invite persons to stay tuned and look out for the conference report. So we provide the information in various forms. If you want to read a report, if you want to listen to our podcast, the recordings would also be in a podcast format. Or if you want to look at the conference proceedings, there would be video on YouTube. So we hope we're able to reach everyone, and we're so grateful that this year we were able to have translation services. So that was a really good addition in terms of access and inclusivity. So if
Yes,
there are no
in terms of the translation, was really tough. Even the guy who was signing to the songs being played, that pulled me over.
Yes. So yeah, that's all part of, it's good that we're able to laugh and have fun in this space, and that also adds to, being hopeful as opposed to, feeling weighed down by the gravity of the situation. So if there are no further interventions from the audience, we would now go into our vote of thanks. I'll pass it over to Ayana, but before I do so, I want to acknowledge the organizing committee of CW4CJ 2023. I know you see Christine and you see me a lot, but it's not just us. We could never do this on our own. So we do have a core team, which comprises of, me, Christine, Ayana Allen, and Afifa Richardson, and also Dana Lynn Swaby. So I just want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the team, Christine, Ayana, Afifa, and Dana Lynn for their service, and the hard work that, we have all put in to make this a reality. So thank you so much. Over to you, Ayana.
Thank you for your hard work as well, Derval, and the whole team. It was an amazing experience to plan this conference with you all. I want to first extend a big thanks to our funders, OSF and CANARI, especially for helping us make this conference a lot more inclusive this year and for allowing us to have such a wide reach. We really, really appreciate it. And we'd also like to thank each and every one of our 50 community co-sponsors who are all doing climate and gender justice work in the region and showing how, this is truly intersectional work and it has so many impacts in all spheres of our life. And I would also love to thank all of our attendees. You all have been amazing, engaging throughout all of the days of the conference. It's really been so incredible to see how much everybody has engaged with the things that we want to talk about, and it's really heartening. So thank you everybody so much.
Yeah, thanks, Ayana. And we are truly, truly grateful for everyone who has supported us this year and persons who have been supporting us since last year. Like, we look in the chat, we see familiar names popping up and we're like, yes, you were here last year. We met you last year and we're so happy to see you again. And of course, all our moderators, our panelists, our speakers, an extra thank you to Danelyn for her poem performance. We were so, so grateful to have everyone on board who had so much to share, so much for all of us to learn from. And this year on the technical and coordinating side, we were able to work with a few new teams who supported CW4CJ to grow so much. So on behalf of Christine, Darval, Danelyn, Ayana, and myself, I extend our deepest gratitude firstly to our language interpreters, so to the team from Cooperativa Brujulas, who provided Spanish and French interpretation. I'm always conscious about rolling my tongue, getting the language getting that little R in. So I'm really happy about that. And also to the team from Vidman Barber, who supported us with ASL interpretation. It was definitely a learning curve for us and our panelists to speak slower, as many of us are naturally fast speakers. And even now I'm like, people slow down, learn to practice. And I'm like, okay, you are speaking too fast. If we had interpretation, you would have been getting snails in the chat right now. So definitely we'll be practicing. Thanks, Christine. I'm really proud of everyone for making space. And I think we learned a lot as a team about language justice on a whole and how to do this right and better next time around. So thank you again to our language interpreters for all the guidance they shared and the time they dedicated to being here with us over the last 3 days. We also cannot forget Carrie Lee Dixon from Carrie Digital and Paula Joseph from the Market Aid, who have both been creating the lovely graphics that you've been seeing on social media. Paula has also been supporting us with sending the many reminders and emails so that you have the link and you can join us each day. So thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you, Paula. And of course, Iran, who has been with us in session every day, providing us with tech support and being our DJ. So Aaron, we really, really, really appreciate the time you've given to CW4CJ 2023. We hope you get some rest, but we really appreciate you taking time out of all your evenings and your weekends to be here with us. So thank you to everyone who made this possible. Back over to you, Paul and Christine.
Thank you, Afifa and Ayana. So, thank you seems inadequate, but that's the language that we have to express how we really feel about you, everyone involved, everyone who contributed. So again, thank you so much for being a part of CW4CJ 2023.
Yes, and I'll just continue. I'm so grateful. Our list of thank yous will continue to get longer. And on behalf of the Breadfruit Collective, our work is so intersectional. We have so much planned this year, and we continue to follow us on our social media and keep updated. And if you want to learn about ways you can get involved in this work, always feel free to reach out and we'll connect with you. And today's a very special day. It's Earth Day. My social media is light up right now. It's lit with all the great things that's happening across the world and in the Caribbean. I'm so proud that we can have this very special day observed here with you all. And to end, I have a poem that I'm gonna read and then we'll close off. So it's called Love in the Time of Climate Change by Craig Santos Perez, recycling Pablo Neruda, Sonnet 17. I don't love you as if you were rare earth metals, conflict diamonds, or reserve of crude oil that cause war. I love you as one loves the most vulnerable species, urgently between the habitat and its loss. I love you as one loves the last seed saved within a vault, gestating the heritage of our roots. And thanks to your body, the taste that ripens from its fruit still lives sweetly on my tongue. I love you without knowing how or when this world will end. I love you organically, without pesticides. I love you like this because we'll only survive in the nitrogen-rich compost of our embrace. So close that your emissions of carbon are mine, so close that your sea rises with my heat. Thank you so much, everyone, and we look forward to hearing from you. We can't wait, and have a blessed and beautiful rest of Earth Day.